Lake Forest was the kind of suburb that didn't just look perfect, it demanded perfection. Cookie-cutter charm with a luxury twist. Historic homes with new Teslas parked out front. Every smile rehearsed, every couple polished. If you didn't belong, you faked it. Jenna never had to fake a thing. She belonged from the moment we moved in. Hell, she belonged before we ever got the keys. She was everything this place adored. Beautiful, accomplished, razor-sharp with just enough social grace to make it look effortless. Men noticed her. Women tried to be her. She was the kind of woman who made brunch look like a TED Talk and wore ambition like a fragrance. I used to admire that. I used to think being her husband meant I had arrived. So when she floated the idea of hosting her colleagues for a Sunday brunch, one of those perfectly staged get-togethers that inevitably ended up on someone's Instagram story, I said yes. Not just yes. I committed. I wanted to prove I could stand beside her in that curated world. I wasn't some shadow she dragged along. I could hold my own. I obsessed over the details. Drove across town to pick up her favorite pastries from a bakery in Highland Park, even though it meant getting up at 6. She didn't ask. I just knew she'd want them. I Googled how to brew proper cold brew, imported the beans she liked from a little roaster in Oregon, and did a test batch the night before. I even ironed linen napkins. Me, ironing. I hadn't touched an iron since college, but I watched a video and steamed every wrinkle out like I was prepping for a photo shoot. I cleaned the baseboards, arranged flowers by color, lit the overpriced eucalyptus candles she liked. By the time our guests arrived, the house looked like it had been ripped from the pages of some lifestyle blog. Jenna didn't say thank you. She didn't need to. I told myself the smile she gave me before answering the door was enough. The first hour was everything I'd hoped for. Polite laughter, discussions about lakefront property and Q3 earnings. Jenna moved through the crowd like a conductor, refilling glasses, dropping clever anecdotes, laughing at just the right pitch. I stuck to my lane, serving drinks, checking in on the oven, nodding at the right moments. I even got a compliment on the coffee from her boss's wife. Jenna overheard and gave me a proud pat on the arm, like I was a kid who just won a spelling bee. Then came the second round of mimosas. The volume in the room turned up just a notch, nothing dramatic. Just a little looser, a little warmer. And that's when Jenna started telling stories. Not cute ones. Not the kind that make people say, "Ah, these had an edge." She told one about the time I accidentally bought a dozen lavender-scented dryer sheets instead of unscented, and how she had to rewash everything because I can't smell the difference between clean and cloying. People laughed. So did I. Sort of. Then she followed it up with another one, how I once used super glue instead of nail glue to fix a broken heel on her shoe, and she ended up with her foot stuck in it for 20 minutes before a meeting. It was an exaggeration, sure, but everyone laughed harder this time. I chuckled along. What else was I supposed to do? Stand up and tell them she was full of it? That the heel was already broken and she told me to just do something about it? That I was trying to help? She poured herself another mimosa, still laughing, and leaned in toward her boss. "Marriage is just one long adjustment, right?" she said with that casual lilt, eyes glancing toward me. Especially when your partner thinks Reddit counts as a news source. I felt it in my chest, that sudden hollow ache. The smile on my face froze, but my heart was pounding. Everyone around us laughed like it was a harmless joke. That's what it looked like, I guess. Playful teasing between husband and wife. But I knew better. This wasn't teasing. This was theater. Performance wrapped in Chardonnay and polished wit. Then she said it. Not every man grows up to be one. She looked right at me when she said it, glass raised, lips curved in that polite smile she always wore for pictures. The room laughed. Some politely, some uncomfortably, but I couldn't even pretend anymore. I stood there with the coffee carafe in my hand, suddenly unsure of where to place it. My grip tightened on the handle. For a moment, I actually felt dizzy, like the air in the room had turned to water and I was sinking in it. I don't know if anyone else noticed the shift in me. Maybe they thought I was just being modest. Maybe they were too tipsy to care. But I saw it in her eyes. She knew what she was doing. The way she held eye contact. The way her mouth barely twitched when the laughter died down. It wasn't a slip. It was intentional. A little dagger hidden in a silk glove. And the worst part? I didn't say a word. I smiled. I nodded. I poured more coffee. I played my part like the good husband I was supposed to be. But inside something splintered. It wasn't about the joke. Not really. It was about what it revealed. That she didn't just stop respecting me. She wanted everyone else to stop, too. That she was rewriting our story in real time, and I was just the punchline. By the time the guests left, my cheeks ached from smiling. Jenna kissed her boss's wife goodbye like they were lifelong friends. She closed the door, let out a long breath, and looked at the mess in the living room. "That went well," she said. I don't think I answered. I just started collecting glasses. She didn't notice. Or if she did, she didn't care. I stayed up after she went to bed. Sat on the back patio with the lights off, just staring at nothing. Replay after replay of that moment, that look, that sentence. Couldn't shake it. Not every man grows up to be one. It echoed in my head, over and over, until I finally realized. She meant it, every word. And maybe she'd meant it for a while. And I was just starting to hear it now. It's strange how something so small, just a sentence, just a look, can become the moment everything unravels. That brunch didn't break me. It just showed me I was already cracked. I didn't sleep that night. I laid there next to her, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rhythm of her breathing like it might somehow sync with mine again. But it didn't. It hadn't in a long time. She looked peaceful, like nothing had shifted, like she hadn't gutted me in our own kitchen. The next morning, she was back to normal. Eggs, toast, emails, talking about the week ahead. Like nothing had happened. Like the words she'd said in front of 10 people hadn't lodged themselves inside my ribs. I watched her, trying to figure out if she even remembered. If it was a deliberate dig or just something she said without thinking. But the way she avoided eye contact, the way her smile was just a little too tight when she asked me to pass the salt. I knew. She remembered. She just didn't regret it. That day, everything changed, even if she didn't notice. I started paying closer attention, watching her the way you'd watch a stranger. The things I used to dismiss, those little habits, those offhand comments, they started piling up. The phone was always face down. The texts came in late at night and lit up the screen while she was in the shower. She stopped leaving her laptop open, started locking her phone even when we were home. "Work stuff," she'd say with that same tired laugh. I used to believe her. I wanted to. But now I started to wonder. I remembered the way she spoke to me in front of her friends. Not just that day, but before. There were always little jabs. "He's a creative type," she once said with a smirk, when someone asked about my job. Or, "He means well," like I was some well-behaved dog trying to keep up. She always followed it with a laugh and a kiss on the cheek, like it made it okay. I let it slide because I thought that's just how we were. A little sarcastic, a little edgy. But it wasn't edgy. It was erosion. 1,000 tiny paper cuts I never noticed until they bled all at once. She would roll her eyes when I talked about taking guitar lessons again. "That phase again?" she'd say. When I got a small promotion at work, she smiled and said, "That's cute, babe," like it was a participation trophy. And then she'd turn around and brag to her coworkers about being the breadwinner. I didn't mind that she made more money. That wasn't the point. It was the way she nized it. Like my contributions only mattered if they could be posted, praised, or profit-driven. And I kept trying. I really did. I started waking up earlier, doing more around the house, making plans for us to travel. I brought up going to therapy. She laughed. Said therapy was for people who didn't know what they wanted. "Do you know what you want?" I asked. She didn't answer. Just looked at me like I was a child asking about the stars. Then came the shift in her schedule. More late meetings. More business trips. Last-minute changes. At first, I believed the excuses. Her job was demanding. She worked in consulting. It was normal. But then came the time she flew to Atlanta and said the hotel lost her reservation, so she had to stay somewhere else. No big deal. Until I saw the receipt from a completely different city, Nashville. And when I asked, She brushed it off like it was a simple mix-up. The client changed locations, she said, eyes glued to her phone. The lies weren't even sophisticated. That's what made it worse. She didn't care if I caught her. Or maybe she thought I never would. One night, I watched her laugh at something on her phone. A real, belly-deep laugh. The kind she hadn't given me in months. I asked her what was so funny, and she just said, "Just a meme from work." She turned the phone off, face down again. Her laughter faded the second she looked at me. I started keeping notes. Not out of paranoia, but clarity. I needed to see the pattern. The late nights. The way she started dressing differently on weekends. She used to wear old college hoodies and tie her hair up when we ran errands. Now it was eyeliner, heels, a hint of perfume. Running into clients, she said. Always clients. Always a reason. I remembered the time she posted a picture of us at her firm's gala. I looked like a prop. Smile frozen. Hand on her waist. The caption read, "Couldn't do this without my #+1. Not husband. Not even partner. Just +1. Like I was a placeholder. A body to match her dress. And through all of it, I still told myself, maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe I'm just insecure. Maybe I should be stronger, cooler, less reactive. That's what she always hinted at. Anyway, that I was too sensitive. Too emotional. She'd say it like a joke. "God, you're such a feeler." But what she meant was, "You're weak." That brunch, though, it tore the blinders off. I started checking call logs. Not reading her messages, just the patterns. One number kept popping up. No name, just a number. Usually late. Usually on weekends. Once, while she was in the shower, it rang. She'd left her phone on the sink. My heart stopped. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I Googled it. It belonged to a local gym. I remembered she'd recently gotten a new trainer. Someone she said was helping her with mobility and form. I didn't even question it. Just smiled and said, "That's awesome, babe." Like an idiot. She'd started spending more time there. Said she liked working out early, before it got busy. Sometimes twice a day. Always showering there. Always coming home with that same faint, unfamiliar scent. Not sweat. Not soap. Something else. I knew. I didn't want to know, but I did. I felt it in my gut. The kind of knowing you can't unknow. The way your stomach drops when you realize you've been clapping for a magic trick, only to find out the magician was never even on your side. It wasn't just about cheating. It was about something deeper. The contempt. The erasure. The way she'd slowly chipped away at who I was until I didn't recognize myself anymore. I used to be confident. I used to laugh without wondering if I was being laughed at. I used to feel like a man. Now I felt like a prop in her play. Convenient when needed. Silenced when not. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. I waited. Because if this was the end of something, I wanted to make damn sure I knew where it began. And how far down it went. It happened on a Wednesday morning, 2 days after the brunch. I was standing in the kitchen, making coffee, the sound of the grinder filling the silence. Jenna was in the living room, talking on the phone. She thought I couldn't hear her. She'd started doing that more often. Speaking in soft tones, moving into other rooms mid-conversation, laughing in a way that didn't belong to the version of her I lived with. But that morning, she got careless. Maybe she didn't think I was paying attention. Or maybe she just didn't care anymore. I heard her laugh light, breathy, the one she used to reserve for inside jokes between us. Then her voice, low and amused. "God. He's just, I don't know. Not a man, really. More like a mistake I never got around to fixing." I stopped mid-pour. The coffee overflowed slightly onto the counter, but I didn't move. I just stared at the liquid pooling near the edge of the mug. Her words echoing in my head like a bad dream I couldn't shake. Not a man. Just a mistake. It wasn't even the cruelty of it that stunned me. It was the ease. The familiarity. Like she'd said it before. Like it was a line she repeated in circles where I didn't exist. I took a long, slow sip of the coffee I no longer wanted. My hands were steady, which surprised me. My heart wasn't racing. There was no panic. Just this eerie, hollow stillness. like something inside me had finally gone quiet after months of screaming. When she hung up and walked past me, she barely looked in my direction. She just grabbed her gym bag, kissed the air beside my cheek, and said she'd be back after her session with Alex. Alex. That name again. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't insecure. I wasn't inventing the distance between us. She had put it there, on purpose. And now she had someone else keeping her company on the other side. I waited until I heard the garage door close. Then I walked upstairs. Her phone was on the bathroom counter, plugged into the wall. She never used to leave it unattended. But lately, she was sloppy. Or maybe just that confident I wouldn't check. But I did. I didn't open it out of jealousy. I didn't want to torture myself. I did it for survival. Because when someone starts rewriting your reality, you need evidence of the truth. You need something to hold onto before you drown in the lies. Her password hadn't changed. I opened her messages and typed in the name, Alex. The screen filled with a thread of texts. Hundreds. Maybe more. My eyes scanned line after line, emojis, jokes, inside references. My eyes scanned line after line, emojis, jokes, inside references. Photos. Some clothed, some not. There were voice memos. A video. A selfie of the two of them in a hotel room I didn't recognize, her head on his shoulder, her smile real in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. The worst part wasn't the cheating. It was the language. The way they talked about me. Like I was this pathetic obstacle in their rom-com subplot. Like I was the guy who didn't get the hint, the one they laughed at from behind the curtain. She told him about the brunch. Said she tested the waters. And that he just stood there like a good little butler, pouring coffee like he didn't even get it. That one hit the hardest. I closed my eyes, that image of myself so fresh. Me smiling, offering drinks, thinking I was being a good partner. Thinking I was showing her I still belonged in her world. I forwarded the texts, the photos, the messages that mattered to a hidden email account I'd created years ago. I took *TS just in case. Not for revenge. For clarity. For proof that I wasn't insane. That she really did see me as less than. A mistake. Placeholder. A joke. Then I put the phone back exactly as I found it. I didn't say anything that night. I didn't accuse her. I didn't scream. I didn't even flinch. I just sat at dinner and listened to her talk about how the gym was so busy today, and how Alex really pushed her during their session. She talked about work, her new client, a conference she might attend next month. I nodded, asked questions, played along, like always, but I had already booked a hotel downtown for the weekend. I called a lawyer the next morning and scheduled a consultation. I opened a new bank account under my name only, moved enough to cover rent and a deposit. The next few days were a blur of silent steps. Me, building an exit plan while she went on with her double life, unaware that the version of me she thought would stay and take it was already gone. I left on a Friday evening. I waited until she got in the shower. She always took long ones on gym days, said it helped her relax. I packed a small bag, just the essentials. My laptop, 2 changes of clothes, a folder of documents, and my mother's necklace. Something she never paid much attention to, but I couldn't bear to leave behind. Before I walked out, I stood in the kitchen for a moment. The mug she used every morning was on the counter, half full. I grabbed a sticky note from the drawer, wrote 7 words, and set it beside the mug. You don't get to call me a mistake. That was it. I closed the door behind me and didn't look back. No dramatic exit. No final confrontation. Just the soft click of a front door closing on a decade I'd spent trying to be enough for someone who had already decided I never was. In the elevator of the hotel, I felt something shift in me. Not relief. Not yet. But space. A kind of emptiness I could finally breathe in. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just stood there with my bag at my feet, watching the numbers light up as I rose. She would find the note in an hour. Maybe 2. She'd probably call. Maybe she'd show up at the hotel, demand answers. Maybe she'd cry. Or lie. Or promise change. But I didn't care. She made her choice. And now I was making mine.